Sound of Freedom has been one of the biggest film surprises in recent memory. And although the mainstream media has ceased talking about it, its message is too important for us to stop talking about. As of last weekend, it's still among the highest grossing films in America and has made more than $155 million in 1 month, outpacing Mission Impossible. In the background of all of this success, the mainstream media kept telling us that Sound of Freedom was based on a wacky conspiracy theory full of QAnon-based concepts. Watch.
It has the backing of not just Republicans and religious conservatives, not just Ted Cruz and Elon Musk, but also QAnon folks and the internet's tinfoil hat brigade.
These films are created out of moral panics. They're created out of bogus statistics. They're created out of fear. And with something like Sound of Freedom, it specifically is looking at QAnon concepts of these child trafficking rings that are run by the high-level elites.
Bogus. They want us to believe them and ignore the real news and real travesty that Sound of Freedom aims to spotlight. In the wake of those on the left telling us that child trafficking is a conspiracy, they occasionally take a break to report the truth, the inconvenient truth. This courtesy of NBC News. The FBI found 200 sex trafficking victims and more than 125 suspects during a 2-week child exploitation operation in July, federal officials said on Tuesday. Wait, can this report be right? Wasn't this all a giant conspiracy? So in the same month that Sound of Freedom was released, our own FBI simultaneously found 200 sex trafficking victims in America. Not a foreign country, right here at home. This topic remains a gravely serious and sick problem. And there's no one better to talk on this subject than Tim Ballard, on whom the Sound of Freedom is based. And Tim Ballard joins us now. He's a senior advisor at the Spear Fund. Tim, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your story, for creating a movement that's showcasing what is a sick and ongoing problem. When you hear 200 and 125 suspects, I got to believe you're saying that's just the tip of the iceberg here.
Absolutely, it's the tip of the iceberg. The irony here, I don't even know how to describe it, that the mainstream leftist kind of media is pretending it's not happening, but then saying it is happening. Even more ironic than that is the fact that all of those networks, CNN, NBC, MSNBC, CBS, Rolling Stone, all of those that are disparaging Sound of Freedom, they all did reports back in 2014 when the actual operation you see depicted in the film happened. And they gave glowing reports. It was real then. 10 years later, it's no longer real. These same outlets are now saying QAnon. Here's the funny part of this. QAnon wasn't even invented until years after this film was done. It's been on the shelf. So it's impossible that any QAnon, ideas are even in this film. And anyone who watches it knows it's nonsense. This is based on a true story.
It's totally absurd. Help me out. I got to ask the obvious question, which is why? Why the about face? Why not admit it? Why not attack it? Why not get rid of it? Why not promote Sound of Freedom and say, this is horrific, let's get rid of it? Why?
I think I know the answer, because there's a conversation about children that they don't want to have. These same networks are promoting this idea that pedophiles should be called minor attracted persons. It should be normalized. The UN just put out a report 2 months ago saying that maybe we shouldn't criminalize sex with children. They don't want to talk about 85,000 unaccompanied minors under the Biden administration that were let into the United States without any background checks being done and delivered to anyone, including potential traffickers. These are the conversations they don't want to have, and they have to discredit Sound of Freedom because they know the Sound of Freedom is going to shine a light on this darkness, and we're not going to stop. We will shove this conversation down their throats to protect children.
You certainly have. And Tim, you just kind of alluded to it. To add to the frustration about this worldwide sex trafficking problem, Fox recently reported this, that quote, Florida's officials said Wednesday that nearly 40% of the people arrested in one part of the state in recent operation cracking down on child sex exploitation were in the U.S. illegally. So the open border on the south is making this problem actually worse, and they have to know that.
It's making it worse. And here's the other piece of this you need to know. The sponsors that the children come across with a name and a number, and Health and Human Services has to call that number. It doesn't matter who it is. In many cases, it's actually illegal immigrants who are receiving the phone call and receiving the children. It's literally more difficult to adopt a cat from a shelter than it is for an illegal person or any person in the U.S. to go down and take a child out of the custody of Health and Human Services. In fact, your taxpayer dollars are now paying for the last leg of what might be a child trafficking experience. This is the reality. This administration is complicit,
yes,
wittingly or not,
yes,
in trafficking children.
And then look us in the eye and tell us it's all humane. It's sick and
That's
it's
right.
wrong and it's a sin. Thank you, Tim, for everything you're doing. Congrats on the film.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.